Hello and welcome everyone. Today I'm here with a very special trader who has recently made around 50k with Quant Tekel, but crazily enough, he's made 350k trading with prop firms overall, which is absolutely astounding. So I'm here with Mathe. Welcome, bro. Thank you for chatting with us.
Thank you very much for having me.
I kind of wanted to dig into where you started with trading. How did you get into the game of trading, and what was your journey like?
So I started a while back, so almost 4 years ago by now probably. I started with entrepreneurship even younger, around 6 years ago I think. Long story short, I started doing online marketing, started making a little bit of money, so really nothing special, but a little bit of money, and then I had some money in the bank for the first time ever. I didn't know what to do with it, but I did know I shouldn't just leave it there. Although the numbers were so small, at like $5,000 or something to my name, so it really wasn't anything crazy. But that's what initially got me into trading. Then I had a friend who actually was in a multi-level marketing scheme who invited me, and that's kind of how I got sucked into the trading space. It's kind of a funny story. I started within MLM, but in the end it actually did work out quite well.
Awesome, bro. I mean, the numbers you're doing are absolutely kind of crazy. How long did it take you to get to the point of, literally withdrawing 350k from prop firms?
The second I discovered trading, I immediately was hooked. And I am someone that's very obsessive about anything I do. So when I say I was hooked, I don't mean like 40 hours a week or whatever. I was on it every single day and like looking at charts, studying whatever, at least 10 hours, and that's a day. So it really wasn't unusual for me to, just do 70 hours a week, even more, trading. I did that for an entire year, a little bit more even, constantly just losing money. And so I was, trying different things. I was learning, and then just all the money I made through the websites. And because I was still doing that, but I didn't have that much time for it anymore. So I still had some clients on retainer, but I didn't really grow it anymore or anything like that. But all the money that I got from the websites and the online marketing, I just sent it to the trading account. And I think I blew 2 accounts, so 2 real accounts. I blew 2 platform challenges. And the money that I made, I spent it on trading. I lost it, I kept going, and I was doing that for like a little over a year, almost a year and a half, I think. And after that, I felt kind of that I needed a break at least, because I realized that if I had put all this time, so let's say just like 70 hours a week, if I had put all that time in the online marketing thing, I probably would be what I considered rich then, right? I would be making probably at least 5,000 euros a month. But in this trading thing, I had put all this time in it, all this effort, all this money, and I had only lost money. So I decided to quit it, completely quit it for a little over a year or a little less than a year. It was around a year, completely quit it and focused on the agency, started making more money with that. And then after my year break, I kind of got back into it, got into prop trading for real. I had only tried like 1 or 2 challenges before. I wasn't really interested in it that much. But then when I got back, I was able to look at things with clear vision and started getting into prop firms, and that's when it all made sense to me.
Would you say that kind of having a marketing agency on the side and getting income from that while learning trading played a big role in you being able to master your trading and not putting too much pressure, so to say, on trading alone? Meaning that you can, learn and execute in a more emotionless kind of way.
100%. It's very hard to be rational and emotionless, and when you need the money to pay rent or to eat food, it's nearly impossible. And so I think it made a huge difference, and even in me being able to, buy the bigger challenges. And because I also personally don't think it's really worth trading a 5k account or whatever. So it allowed me to buy 100k. That's what I started with. I bought 200ks and to start. It allowed me to buy those, and it also did allow me to not care too much about if it went right or if it went wrong. You know, if it worked, great, it was some nice money on the side. If it didn't work, it didn't really matter. So yeah, that played a huge role both in my psychology, but also in just being able to do what I did, and as in buying like the bigger challenges.
And in terms of your trading strategy, how did you find the strategy that works best for you? Because some people spend a lot of time jumping between one type of methodology and a different type of methodology. And some people just go down a rabbit hole of never-ending strategies before finding something that works for them. How did you go about finding something that worked best for you? And can you describe kind of how you get into trades?
That's obviously one of the hardest parts about trading. But I never had much problems with the shiny object syndrome. So strategy hopping or whatever, I just found something that did make a lot of sense to me. And I kind of stuck to it even when I wasn't profitable. I wasn't one of these guys. I was trading support and resistance one moment and SMC the next and ICT the next. And so that wasn't really that much of an issue for me. So before my break, I was putting in all these hours and I was consuming all this information. But sometimes it's like the same when you have a maths test, for example, and you study all the information, and the evening itself you still feel like you don't really know, you're not really getting it, and then you go to sleep, and the next day you kind of mastered it on a different level just because you gave it some time, your head, to kind of structure the information and stuff. And I feel like my 1 year break kind of was the sleep to my trading set. So I did have all the information available. Everything that I use to trade now, I did know back then. And it was more so what I was having trouble with was I had all this information and I needed to structure it and to obviously to test it. But the biggest thing for me was to kind of, after taking in all that information, structure it into a strategy and to be able to get back to trading, without that many emotions, because obviously also a big factor when I was constantly losing money, you're also kind of emotional, you want to make it back, you're stressed. And so after the break, it really helped me to be calm and to kind of structure everything I already knew into my strategy. So I hope that makes sense.
What would you say your biggest challenge was kind of getting to that point of profitability? What do you think was holding you up before getting to, some of your first payouts and starting to get the ball rolling into what basically turned into a snowball effect of a ton of payouts and a ton of profit? Yeah. What was that kind of switch that you made?
Yeah, there's so much that changed. But for one thing, I do believe strongly in like the winner effect. There's also this book about it. It's just about stacking small wins, and then in your mind you're a winner and you'll start winning more. There's some science behind it, but that's like pretty much the idea. And I felt like when I was trading, I was just stuck in this losing loop, and it made me emotional. It made me lose more, and then I wanted to make the money back, and that made me lose more. And I was like, oh, if I had spent this time doing blah blah or blah blah, I would have made all this money, and instead I lost all this money. And so I was just in this loser loop. And then when I took the break for a year and I focused on the agency, and in the agency, so that's something that's nice about like agency working out. That's a struggle with trading is been working out, and in the agency, the more effort you put in, the better your results will be. And it's kind of undeniable. Obviously there are some exceptions, but if you just outreach more, you'll get more clients. If you just practice more, you'll get better. So it's quite easy to get the ball rolling. And I feel like that was a big part of my success. Probably like the biggest thing, if I had to pick one, was that I was on a roll. I felt like a winner. I felt like I could really do this, and kind of feel a little bit invincible, if that's not invincible, but as if you really can take it. Whilst maybe deep down, I didn't really believe I could do it. So I'd say probably being on a roll helped me the most.
How much in funded capital do you have at the moment with prop firms? if I can ask?
Around 2 mil. So at my peak, instant funding not included, I was at 3.5. But that obviously was like a while back when it was still possible to do so, because prop firms are constantly changing. I wouldn't, there's not that many firms that actually pay out over an extended period of time at least, and that are also worth trading with, in my opinion. So initially this year I set my goal to 5 million, and in the middle or maybe beginning of the year it was looking like that maybe it would be possible. But right now I wouldn't know honestly how you get above 3 and Forex firms, that is, and we're reliable firms, and 3 is even very aggressive in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it is a ton of funding. How do you even go about managing that much funding? Do you copy trade them, or do you just trade them all individually? How do you manage to trade so much capital at once?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one I get a lot. And the honest answer is, people always ask me like, how do you manage all of those? Isn't that like so much effort? And yes, it is, but it pays well, so I don't really mind it. It's like the honest answer to it. It's not like I have the magic strategy to all of a sudden manage it without the stress or without the time it takes. I just don't mind spending the time on it and dealing with the stress because it pays so well. And that's kind of like the honest answer to it. But so no, I don't copy trade. I trade almost all of my accounts separately. So very seldomly I might copy trade like 100Ks or whatever. But usually I trade all my accounts separately. Yes, it is a lot of work. Yes, it is a lot of stress. But in my opinion, that's what worked best for me. So I'm gonna stick to it. I've tried copy trading, but I didn't like it as much. One of the great things about having all this funding is that it isn't that important if I win or if I lose a trade. And whilst if, for example, I were to copy trade 2 million, and then all of a sudden this one trade can reasonably make or lose me $40,000, risking 2% or aiming for 2%, and that's just something I prefer much more smaller trades than like this one big one that kind of has the ability to bankrupt you or to make you rich. I think it's very hard to stay emotional that way, and it's way easier. Now I can lose very bad weeks. Say I lose 5 trades in a row. It's not that big a deal to me. And I trade high risk to reward. So 1 to 3 to 1 to 5 usually. So I do lose 5 trades in a streak sometimes. I mean, now I don't really mind it that much. Whilst if you were to copy trade across all your funding, then that probably will clean me away. So yeah.
Kind of in a nutshell, that your secret to having consistent profit is in the managing of your accounts and diversifying trades across account. Because again, you're not the same trades across multiple accounts. You are spreading your risk, so to speak. And I think that again, like you said, having a 5 losing streak isn't a big deal for you, because again, you're not going to be down 5% across all your accounts. You spread that risk across multiple accounts.
Yeah, that's.
Ask like when you. I wanted to ask your trading strategy. You said you have a high risk reward ratio. What does like an entry into a trade look like for you? Firstly, how often do you trade, and what pairs do you prefer to trade?
Okay, so how often do I trade? And I've been trying to bump that up. And so it was like 1 trade, maybe 2 a day, if my setups were there. But I've been trying to increase that, and mostly because I want to scale a little bit harder. But to do so without having to risk too much on a single trade, I'll have to be taking more trades, pretty much what it comes down to. And so I have been trying to take a little bit more trades. So that's something I've been working on this last month. And so now it's probably 3 to 5 a day. And so it's a lot of work, it's a lot of stress, but it is worth it in my opinion. Then the pairs I started trading pretty much only GU and EU. I still prefer to trade GU, but it's not possible with all prop firms, and for plenty of reasons. First of all, sometimes there is USD news, sometimes there is GBP news, and sometimes there is not really set up on it. So if you want to take more trades, as I'm trying to do, it's not really viable to only trade one pair. It would make it too hard to take 3 to 5 trades a day. And so I started kind of expanding, and then also the conditions also on prop firms are really bad. And some prop firms, for example, have a 2 pip spread on GU and a 2 pip spread on gold. And so then it makes way more sense, in my opinion, to trade gold there. So now I trade GU, EU, GJ, gold, and NES. And which one I try to keep track of what account I like to trade, what pairs it. So for example, with Quant Tekel, I do like to trade gold and indices, because your spreads are so small and your commissions are so small, pretty much the smallest for gold and indices out of all the prop firms. So I like to trade those with you guys. And then there are some prop firms that have horrendous spreads on pretty much anything except EU, so I'll trade EU there. So that's kind of how I like to do it. But the pairs I trade are EU, GU, GJ, gold, and NES. Sometimes US30, but mostly NES.
And in terms of, amassing such a huge amount of funded capital, how did you go about getting so much funding so quickly? Is there a specific technique that you use to get funded so quickly? Do you maybe lose a couple of accounts on the way to getting your funded account, your funded evaluation done? What kind of strategy do you use to go about getting funded?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing there is that I didn't spend any money until I made well over $100,000, I think. So pretty much all the money I made from challenges, I just bought more challenges or bought education or whatever. But that's a big thing. I didn't buy any watches, cars, none of that stupid stuff. And then I also don't mind losing an account. It's part of the game. As long as you'll be able to make it back and some, then there's no shame in losing an account. So yeah, I think those two principles, they help me the most. I think especially a bunch of young traders then mostly, they make their first $20,000 or whatever, and they spend 10 of it on a watch or something like that. I just think it's not a smart way to grow quick.
Yeah, 100%. So what I'm hearing is that you're a little bit more aggressive on perhaps getting funded than you are, for example, on managing your prop accounts once they are funded.
I tend to risk the same on both live accounts and challenge accounts. This is a controversial take of mine, but I made a whole YouTube video explaining this. But in short, I like to risk as much as I'm allowed to, because in my case, if you know you have an edge, you pretty much want to risk as much as possible, because it will increase or optimize your returns. So I want to kind of risk as much as I can, obviously within the rule of the prop firm, and also considering I want to keep my risk of ruin acceptable to me. And so for example, if you only have one account, you're risking, let's give a crazy example, you're risking 5% per trade. That means you have 2 trades before you lose everything. Are you willing to, does that make sense to you? In my opinion, it wouldn't. And so then obviously I'd keep my risk lower. But for me, since I have enough money and enough accounts, that's not really a factor. And then the other thing is what we already discussed, is not only do you want to keep your risk of ruin reasonable, but you also want to make sure it doesn't get you emotional, the amount you're risking or making for that matter. And so I think you want to risk as much as it. This is obviously if you have an edge. If you don't, then you should risk as little as possible. But if you do have an edge, I think mathematically it makes sense to risk as much as you're allowed, as long as it keeps your risk of ruin reasonably low and it doesn't make you emotional. So that's the strategy I've been going with. So with Quant Tekel, for example, I risk 2 to 2.5% on pretty much all my trades.
And in terms of, keeping your emotions under control, like you were talking about, what is your biggest tip on keeping your emotions under control while trading, specifically with prop firms?
There's a lot of things to talk about when it comes to emotions. I think the first thing that might be a little bit of a controversial opinion that I don't hear as much is that so for example, I've been trading more, as I've said, and it's been very stressful to me. I feel that stress, so that's no different. It's always when you're trying to scale and you're doing new numbers, and before you were risking $100, now you're risking used. Up the account size, now you're risking $200, now you're risking $500, blah, blah, blah. Every step along the way will increase your stress. At least I feel bad about it in the beginning. I feel stressed. And so in my opinion, it's not as much about not feeling the stress and not feeling the emotions as it is about not acting on them. I know when I should enter, I know when I should, and when I should leave the trade, and I should close it. And although I might feel the urge to close it earlier or this or that, that doesn't go away in my opinion. It might get less, but as you keep growing, it also will keep increasing with you. So the feelings don't really go away in my opinion. But it's more so about learning to not act on it. A great way, or something very important that not a lot of people do to accomplish that, is to know your numbers. And so if you've backtested 1,000 trades and you know exactly, all right, my win rate is 60%, my risk to reward is, let's say, 1-to-1. It is normal for me to lose 3 trades in a row. It is normal for me. I've seen this before. I know what's going to happen. I know this isn't the end of the world. I think a lot of people blame emotions and psychology whilst they haven't given themselves enough reason to actually believe what they are saying. If you only backtested, let's say, 100 trades, or some people even only backtest 10 or 20 or whatever, then subconsciously you don't know if the strategy works. You don't know how it plays out. You might be shocked when you lose 3 trades in a row while it's completely according to plan. And so I think that's a big part, is knowing your numbers. But I also think that requires a lot of effort, and most people that don't want to put it in because it's boring work. So I think that's a big thing. I think, like what I said before, it's not about not feeling them, it's about not acting on them. Then also like to do some breath work. So I don't always do it, but for example, now when I'm scaling up every day, I'll do some breath work. And then once my body's kind of settled into this new risk, let's say, I won't need to do it anymore. And then another massive thing, and also why having the agency was so nice, is to keep busy. You want to set your trade, stop loss, take profit, and then you want to leave it alone, and you don't want to be staring at the chart all day. And so for me, what helped a lot was the agency. So I set the trades, stop loss, take profit, and then I just fuck off until the alarm went off. And I do think that helped me a lot to control my emotions, because I don't think there is anything worse you can do both for your mental health and for your trading performance than stalking the charts. So I think keeping busy is also an underrated tip.
Yeah, no, I agree. Before we wrap up here real quick, I just wanted to ask you, the Forex trading space is a super, super difficult space to navigate, especially if you're just starting out. There's a lot of scammers, there's a lot of nonsense out there. If you were starting now, would you look for a mentor, or would you end up just looking to start just by learning on YouTube from free information that you can find?
So obviously it depends on the money you have. If you have a lot of money, then it might be worth it to spend it on coaches or whatever. So for example, right now, whenever I'm learning a new skill, I'm learning to code right now, and I'm just looking for a mentor as quickly as possible, because I know it will save some time. But then also, like you say, so if you don't have money, you shouldn't even be thinking about it. If you do have money to spend on it, I personally don't like learning from these new wave guys when there are these titans in the industry that released everything for free. But once again, it's a little bit more boring. For example, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger has like this entire book that's like one of the best books I've ever read. It's a summary or a combination of pretty much all of his speeches, all of his stock letters. It's Charlie's Almanac.
Everybody will have learned a lot from your experiences. And congratulations on doing so well with prop firms. Yeah, thanks for chatting with us.